So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something we all use every single second, but maybe don't think about too much: our electricity. We're going behind the switch to really understand the incredible balancing act that keeps our world running.
I mean, think about it, right? You flip a switch, boom, there's light. You plug in your phone, it just works. It feels so simple, so instant. But behind that wall socket is one of the most complex machines humanity has ever built, and it's performing this constant, high-stakes juggling act every moment of every day.
And the secret to that whole act, the thing that makes it all work, is a concept called load management. Honestly, this is the core challenge we're talking about today: making sure that the amount of electricity being made matches, almost perfectly, the amount we're all using in real time. If that balance is off, even by a tiny bit, the whole system could go down.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with that core supply and demand problem. Then, we'll meet the different players making our power. You know, the old guard and the new kids on the block. We'll get into the tough trade-offs between them, and then finally, we'll see how the modern grid actually pulls off this amazing magic trick.
Okay, first up, let's really get our heads around this fundamental challenge, because once you understand this, everything else just clicks into place. You see, here's the fundamental mismatch. A power plant, it loves to run like a marathoner, at a nice, steady, constant pace. But our lives? Our lives are a series of sprints. We all get up around the same time. We all make dinner at 7 p.m. We all blast the air conditioning on that first hot day of summer. Our need for power is a total roller coaster, and the grid has to ride it right alongside us, second by second.
So, to deal with that roller coaster of demand, the grid has traditionally relied on a few, let's call them the old guard. These are the reliable workhorses that built the whole system.
First up, you've got your classic steam power from things like coal or petrol. Now, for decades, this was the go-to because, hey, you could build these plants pretty close to cities where people actually needed the power. But, and it's a big but, they're expensive to keep running, they cause pollution, and get this, with an efficiency of only 25 to 40%, it basically means for every 4 shovels of coal you burn, you're only getting about 1 shovel's worth of actual electricity. The rest is just wasted heat.
Then you've got hydropower. And wow, just look at that efficiency number, 90 to 95%. That is absolutely incredible. Once you build the dam, the fuel, water, is free. The running costs are super low and the energy is clean. But here's the catch. The upfront cost to build one is astronomical. You need the absolute perfect geography with a big river, and that perfect spot is almost always way out in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles from the cities that need the power.
And that brings us to our third big player from the conventional team: nuclear power. Now, when it comes to being clean and efficient, it's a lot like hydro. It can pump out a massive, steady stream of power with zero carbon emissions. The trade-off here, as you can imagine, is the extremely high cost of construction and all the safety systems involved. And for pretty obvious reasons, these plants also have to be built in remote, very carefully chosen locations.
Okay, so that's the old guard. But things are really starting to change because a whole new team of contenders has entered the ring: renewables, and they are changing the game.
Let's start with solar. I mean, the fuel is free, it's delivered every morning, and it's completely clean. What's not to love? Well, it introduces this brand new challenge for the grid: intermittency. That's just a fancy way of saying it's not always on. The sun doesn't shine at night. And on top of that, you need a pretty big area of panels to generate a serious amount of power.
And it's a very similar story with wind power. When the wind is blowing, it's fantastic. It's a super competitive source of clean energy with low running costs. But just like the sun, the wind doesn't always blow when we want it to. So both solar and wind are incredible when they're available, but you can't just flip a switch and turn them on whenever you want, like you can with a conventional power plant.
And it doesn't stop there. Think of these next ones as the specialists on the team. You've got geothermal, which taps right into the Earth's own heat, super reliable, runs 24/7, but you can only do it in a few specific places on the planet. There's biomass, which is this brilliant idea of turning organic waste into energy, and then you have things like fuel cells, which use hydrogen to make clean power, though that's still pretty expensive to do at scale. Each one has its own special part to play.
So, we've met all these different players, which leads to the million-dollar question, right? Which one is actually the best? Well, as you've probably guessed, it is not that simple. I mean, you see a number like 95% efficiency for a hydro station, and you think, case closed, that's the winner. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the point. Because while that number is amazing, we've already seen that the massive cost, the specific location you need, it means hydro can't be the only answer. Every single power source comes with a trade-off.
And this table just lays it all out so clearly. There's no single perfect choice. You've got coal, which is reliable, but it's polluting and not very efficient. You've got hydro, which is a powerhouse of efficiency, but costs a fortune to build. And then you have wind and solar, which are renewable and cheap to run, but they have that one big catch, intermittency. There's just no silver bullet.
Okay, so if there's no silver bullet, no single power source that can do it all, then how on earth do we solve this great balancing act? How do we manage this incredibly complex system every single day?
Well, the answer is you don't pick a winner. You build a team, a really diverse, flexible team. The modern grid isn't just about making more power. It's about being smarter with the power we have. It combines all those different sources with a new, game-changing element, being intelligent about how we use that power.
And one of the smartest strategies they use is something called peak shaving. Think about it like this. Instead of building a whole new, expensive power plant just to handle those few super hot afternoons in August, what if we could just intelligently trim down that peak demand? That's what this is all about.
And this gets done using three main moves. You have peak clipping, which is just directly cutting back demand during those busiest hours. Then there's load shifting, that's you deciding to run your dishwasher at 10 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. And finally, you have valley filling, which is the opposite, encouraging us to use power when there's plenty of it and demand is low, like charging an electric car overnight. And if you're wondering if this actually makes a difference, get this. This quote is wild. A tiny 5% drop in demand during those peak hours could slash the price of electricity by a whopping 50%. That is a massive, massive saving for everyone.
So when you put it all together, this whole balancing act isn't just about keeping the lights on. It's a triple win. We save money, we make the grid way more efficient, and by making it easier to use renewables, it's just plain better for the environment.
So this is what the grid of the future really looks like. You've got that solid foundation, your base load, from conventional power that's always on. Then you layer on top the opportunity from renewables, grabbing all that clean energy when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing. And the secret ingredient that holds it all together is flexibility. That's demand management, acting like the grid's shock absorber, smoothing everything out and making the whole team work together perfectly.
You know, this whole system is changing faster than ever before. We're moving away from a simple one-way street of power to this smart, interactive grid where we're all a part of it. And that really leaves us with a final thought. Our choices as consumers, when we choose to use energy, are becoming a really powerful part of this great balancing act. So what role will you play?